But like even being at the grocery store, no one else being in line, but seeing that the cashier's arm is bandaged up and just saying, hey, I'm a person who prays. Can I pray over your arm? And when she's like, absolutely. So then my next step is like, can I pray for it right now? No one else is in line. And so to extend the hand and pray for healing over this.
Yeah.
Like in that moment, it is no longer me and Karen. It is now me, Karen, and Jesus.
Hey moms, welcome back to the Gather Moms podcast. We are so glad that you are here. Hey, we have a very special guest today as we talk about gathering the experts. This woman is an expert in neighboring well. She's written 2 books about it, in fact. And so I want to welcome Shauna Pilgreen to the podcast. Hey, Shauna.
Hey girls, it's good to be here. I'm looking forward to, this is my tribe, right? To be with a group of moms. So yes. This will be a great conversation.
Great. We're so thankful you're here and you have lived out what you teach. And so tell us a little bit about, you're a church planter, that you guys planted a church in San Francisco, and you're a mom and a pastor's wife. So tell us a little bit about that. What was that calling like? Where did you guys, I can't even remember where you came from. Shauna and I, for those behind the scenes, Shauna and I are connected because they planted through the network that I also work through. But I knew Shauna, I know she's so gifted in what she's going to talk about today. So I wanted her on the podcast. But tell us, where were you guys? And then what led you to San Francisco of all places?
Yes. So I grew up as a pastor's kid and actually born in Texas.
Woohoo!
While my dad was in seminary. So grew up as a PK, and then Ben and I met doing youth camps in Tennessee. And then when we got married, he went to Texas for seminary, but grew up in Georgia. And then we were so most of our ministry was in the South doing college ministry. And then we were last in Missouri before we moved to San Francisco. So been around.
Yes. And when God called you to San Francisco, did you say, can we shuffle this? What's that magic 8 ball again? Or like, can we try this again? Or how did you feel about that?
Well, I was ready. I put my yes on the table when I was a 4th grader.
Okay.
I grew up around, like, we would have missionaries from all over the world come and sit at our kitchen table growing up. And so hearing stories of missionaries, I'm like, I just wanted to hop on a plane and go since I was young.
That's amazing.
So San Francisco, let's go. Honestly, I think I would have probably been more comfortable heading to a foreign country because San Francisco didn't seem far enough.
Whoa.
Or it didn't even seem like, I felt like maybe I could do better than this. Like I could go further.
That's amazing. I'd be like, thank you, Jesus, for keeping me in the States. Yeah.
But listen, when we first moved here, I'm thinking I might need a passport to live here. Just the different languages and cultures. And I'm like, where did this all come from? So much of my upbringing, culture, theology kind of got flipped when we moved to San Francisco. And I realized, God, you were bringing the world to this city. And so it's been really neat to see who God has here, who we're getting to reach. And then, it's a transient place. So people are here for a few years and then return to their homes or move somewhere else. So it's really neat to see how all along through Scripture, you just see how God was at work in cities and who he brings in. And that's just been a huge part of our ministry here.
So it was more of a move than you realized. And God really did take you to other countries by really bringing them to you. That's neat. So How long have you guys been in San Francisco?
So we've been here. We hit 15 years this summer.
Wow.
Yeah. So we moved here in 2010.
Did you have all your babies there or did you have some kids before you moved?
None. We have had no Cali babies. So we have 4 kids. Our oldest was born while we were doing ministry in Louisiana. Our other 2 boys were born when we were doing ministry in Alabama. So they were 2, 4, and 6 when we
Wow.
moved to San Francisco. So like we had to buy the stroller. I don't know I don't even know if these exist anymore. You know, nowadays, like you look at what moms are doing and you're like, oh, that would have been nice if I had
Yeah.
had this. But it was that stroller where like one could stand, one could sit backwards, and then one could get strapped in. But that's how we got to church because it's a walkable city. So they were 2, 4, and 6. And then 10 years ago, we adopted our daughter from India. So
Wow.
she's been in our family 10 years. So yeah.
Listen, I'm telling you, church planners are a different breed of people.
That's amazing.
They are crazy. Like they're just another level. And so that's amazing. Like I hear you saying that and I'm like, I feel like if I had 4 kids, I'd be like, that's good. We planted a church. That is enough. And y'all were like, no, let's take them all and move across the country to a place that's, a little bit resistant to Christianity or a lot bit. And, chuck everything we know and just go do this wild thing, which I just love about you guys.
Well, Kate, it doesn't sound crazy until you say all of that.
Thanks for
I'm
bringing
like,
that to our
actually, this is
attention,
quite
Kate. Good job.
normal. Yeah, I'm like, this actually feels quite normal until you start talking like that. And I'm thinking, wow, this is a little wild, isn't it?
No, but it's great because, some of the things we talk about on the podcast, especially with kids, is like, you never if you don't go and do big things, you never know that you can do them.
Mm-hmm.
And what an amazing thing. And the other thing I think that we downplay is what a great life we have the opportunity to live if we will go on adventure with God and
Yes.
just like let him lead us to
Mm-hmm.
do things that are unexplainable, but you go, this is where he took me. This is what he did. And it's just, I can't imagine living life any better way.
Exactly. And I think that's a word for all of us, Kate, because Ben says this often, my husband, where there's things that are just in us that come so naturally. Like they're so from God and they're just woven into the fabric of who we are that we do it so naturally. It just comes so second nature. And then we like someone might look at us and they're like, how do you do that? And you're like, what do you mean? Like it's just you just do it so easily. Where someone else is like, I can't
Yeah.
even think that way. I couldn't even imagine that. I wouldn't even know where to start. But to your point, Kate, it's like God's made us all so different. So like we go places and I'm like, I don't know how they do ministry in this place. Or that
Yeah.
would be so hard for me. Whereas like we're doing what God's asked us to do. And there's that grace in his
Yeah.
call on our lives. And I think it's beautiful when we get just to admire one another and what we're different at
Yeah.
and where we get to serve the whole kingdom of God. But yeah, he's got us here and there's just been an extra grace in doing that. And you said something early on about expert. And you think about when you set out to do things, I don't know about you, but I'm not futuristic. I can't see so long term. So it's not like when we set out on this, we're like, you know what, one day we're going to write books about this. And
Right.
one day we're going to start giving advice to other church planters who come up after us. I didn't say that. But then you realize like, wow, God, we've seen you do so much.
Yeah.
The way we honor and glorify you is actually to pour ourselves out to those who
Yeah.
come behind us and
Yes.
to be a blessing, whether it's financially or with wisdom or with encouragement to anyone who says, hey, I think that's the lane God's called me to run in also.
Yeah, that's great. So, Shauna, not only are you a mom and a church planter and a pastor's wife, and I think you have roles at Epic at your church, but you also have a significant role in Alpha. Will you tell our moms about Alpha and what you do with them?
Yeah, so Alpha creates spaces, whether it's in churches or prisons or cafes or literally any place where you gather to have conversations and to introduce people to Jesus. And so Alpha is all about hospitality, connection, dependency on the Holy Spirit, and conversations. And it originated in London, and
Oh, wow.
it originally was a course for people who were new to faith. But as it's gotten changed over the years, it's now like a set of questions for people outside the church who maybe are like, I don't feel like I can ask those questions inside the church, or I'm not sure where to bring my questions. And so Alpha helps the church create spaces to bring these questions. And it's big questions like, is there more to life than this? And why is there evil? And how do I pray? And why should I read the Bible? And who is Jesus? And what is forgiveness? So it's those kinds of questions. And what happens over the series of questions is trust is built, and people come to understand and encounter the living Jesus for themselves. And what ends up happening, that's just, I love being a part of, is that you have churches are growing in salvation, growing in baptism. It affects leadership pipelines in churches. And it really opens up a church more to evangelism and outreach. And it's a beautiful thing that I get to be a part of.
Yeah, cool. I love it. So the first book you wrote was Love Where You Live. And I'm wondering, like, what did that book come out of? Because I'm curious, what did that look like coming into San Francisco? Were there some things that you were like, oh, I don't love this? Or, kind of finding your place in the city. How did you come to love it, and why did you write that?
Yeah. So when our boys were little, and I'm wondering, God, am I going to do anything productive outside of keeping the house clean and keeping these kids fed? My thing was writing. And so, but it was writing for myself. Then I began to write on a blog. And then from that blog, when we moved to San Francisco, it's kind of my way of journaling for a handful of people who were reading it, like what life was like in San Francisco. And so I was working alongside um, a ministry for church planters' wives. And they're like, what if we took your journal entries on the blog and we made that an ebook? So it became an ebook called Live Sent 31 Days in the City that I partnered with the North American Mission Board and the Send Network to write. And so it was like 31 days. Like if you just, your first 31 days in a city or in a new place, here's just some like fun things that you can do with your kids, with your spouse as you're setting up home. And so the idea of like, instead of like living, like closing the blinds, I don't know how to face this new reality, like learn the barista's name, get a library card, venture outside of the city, figure out public transit. Like what's the nearest ministry spot, a place where you can meet a need as close to your home as possible and find out how to meet that need.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things. So it started as a blog, then it became an ebook for church planters. And then there was a publisher that was interested in like, Shauna, if there was a family walking inside of your church that just moved to the city, what would you tell them? So I intended to use most of the 31 days in the city, but the idea, it just went bigger and the audience got bigger. So that's how we put together Love Where You Live.
That's
Yeah. And
great.
so it was so much of our journey from moving to a new place. And you know what has surprised me, girls, is that the biggest audience for Love Where You Live is probably military families.
Oh, that makes
That
sense.
makes sense. Yes.
Yeah.
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 Well, and for us, Rebecca and I are here in Texas, and we meet transplants constantly. And that's been a huge part, I feel like, for a lot of moms of their journey in recent years, is moving from potentially California to Phoenix or to Texas or things like that.
Yep.
And, for a mom who they have just kind of had to uproot everything and move to a new place, and she may honestly feel a little resentful about it, or she's lacking community and she feels it, it is jarring. What would your encouragement to her be?
You're right. I mean, I think the pandemic affected this. And then I think it's just a different generation. Our parents probably moved far less than our generation is moving.
Right.
And so I do think it's far more normal to meet someone who's new to a place. I don't know. It certainly is in California, where I'm like, most people are transient and transplants than they are. It's rare for us to come upon a local. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
So I think it's become the norm. So I think that plays into to an advantage for us. But I think for the big thing, like especially those first few months, and I even venture to say maybe even the first year or two, when everything's more fresh, you see life, you see culture, you see people very different than once it's become routine, old hat, you know your routines, you're kind of set in your ways. So you're in a beautiful place if you're new to a place and you've got the opportunity to explore, to make mistakes, to figure it out, to ask questions, to take someone out to coffee who's been there a little longer than you have. So I mean, my encouragement would be like, embrace it. Like it is scary, but you're not going to get those months back because
That's
of it,
good.
That's such a good
in time,
perspective that I never thought about. That like you're
in
only new
time,
for
it
so
becomes
long.
normal. Yeah. I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
interrupted. What did you say, Rebecca?
No, what you were saying, you're only new for so long and then it does become normal and you stop being as observant as you were before because you feel like, well, I already know all this. What actually is a treasure to be? I don't want to move, but it kind of makes me want to move,
Well,
because you
I'll
get to be
flip it
new.
on you. I'll flip it on you, Rebecca, because I think the thing that needs to be true for us that have been in a place for a while is, who are the new people that we can take out to lunch and say, hey, what do you see that I've grown accustomed to?
That's
I
good.
remember we were partnering with a church in Romania, and I remember walking the streets with the executive pastor's wife. They've lived there 30 years. And I noticed something on their, um, I don't know what they're called, but it's like the seal, maybe to the sewage
Oh,
spots around
yeah.
the city.
Uh-huh.
But I noticed, I was like, it has a crest on it and has the name of the town. And she's like, I've never paid attention to that. But once she looked down at it, she began to kind of explain the history of the city that was just embedded on that. So again, it's like we have so much to learn from each other. So I think if you're new, find someone who's been there a while to learn from. And if you've been there a while, take someone out to lunch who's new
Good.
and get their perspective.
That's wonderful. It's making me think of, so my dad and stepmom just moved to be nearer to us in the last couple of years. And my dad will regularly say things to me like, hey, do you know why this street is named this? And I'm like, no, I have no idea. And he's like, well, this person helped found, your town. And there's just all these things he knows
Yeah.
that he's learning because he's interested in. And he's part of like Rotary. So,
Yep.
there's these old guys all chopping it up about like facts about the town and everything, but I'm like, oh wow, I've lived here 17 years. And so I just kind of take some of that stuff for granted. But you're right. It is fun to interact with somebody that's new and learn new things from their perspective about your city.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I also think about like I was new here when we moved here 17 years ago, and I don't know that we would have found the life group we're in. I mean, it was really Rebecca who, we met. I had a 7-month old, and I went to this women's Bible study, and I met Rebecca, and she was like, "Do you want to go to lunch?" And I was like, "Sure." And we talked about things we had in common, but then she said, "Do you have a life group?" And I was like, "No." And I remember like my husband and I just felt so overwhelmed. Like, where do we even start with these life groups? How do we find a group?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, come to my group. And Shauna, we went to that group, and we were in that same group for 12 years. We ended up leading the group.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Those became our people. And the other thing that was huge for me is we went and checked out that group. And then one of the couples that helped run the group, one of the wives reached out to me and she said, would you like to go have lunch? And I was like, okay, sure. But those two little acts, I mean, and it's big actually. For a mom who has a lot going on, that's actually a big deal to say, can I
Yes.
take you to lunch?
Yes.
But that changed the trajectory of me finding community, me finding a church. Like, I can't imagine where we'd be without it.
That's
Well, and it was so
huge.
natural because when you love something, you want to share it. So I think
Exactly.
that's why I love what you in the book, Love Where You Live. Like, if God's planted you there, then find the things that are special and embrace them and then share them with the people that need to love something. So,
Yeah. And I love that. And Kate, going back to what you're saying, where Rebecca, took you out to lunch, we have this statistic through Barna with Alpha that 86% of people come to Alpha by personal invitation. And I'm sure that's probably not too far off from the church. that so many people will come and stay because of a personal invitation versus like social media ads or things like that. Like, which means there are so many people that are just waiting for that invitation. And you
Yeah.
know, even sometimes I'll do this here on the streets in San Francisco. I'll see some people and I'm like, okay, they're tourists. They've got their map out on their phone. I'm like, I just want them to know, like, hey, is there any way I can help you? Is there something you're looking for? And even if they've got it all figured out and they're just trying to figure out like which way should they be facing with their phone, I think just that little touch of, hey, someone cares that we're here,
Yeah.
goes a long way. And again,
So
we never know. We say that we don't want to give anyone's no for them. So if they're like, we don't need help, that's great, move on. But on the chance that they're like, we're so lost, or we're trying to get to this restaurant, or what street are we on actually, goes a long way. And I think, Rebecca, to your point, like it required some energy, but it didn't drain you to take someone to lunch knowing that you love it so much and you just want to share that love and for them to feel comfortable being in this new place.
yeah, no, that's so good. But I think like what you just said, where you stop on the street and you help tourists. Okay, I just want to be honest about the fact, Shauna, that most people are not doing that. And, I think you talk a lot about like neighboring well in your
Yes.
books. And I just want to be honest. I think a lot of us, we just stink at neighboring. And I don't think we see it as a missional opportunity. I think we do feel overwhelmed. People come home, we put the car in the garage, we close the garage, we go in the house. Like, what is the mindset shift that has to take place? I don't know, or that where you think differently about things. Like, what does that look like for
Mm-hmm.
you?
Well, I remember I'm pretty sure it was bagels if we were eating at Panera, but I remember sitting down with a young mom, just a few years younger than me, and we were in Missouri, and we knew we were moving to San Francisco, and I was basically handing off mom's ministry to her. And she made a comment. She said, "You've got it so much easier than I do." And what she was referencing is that I was getting to start over. I was getting to start from scratch. Where sometimes when you're holding something that's just been, it's older, it's more set in its ways, it's got a lot of traditions around it, it's got expectations of like it's going to stay the same way, we've always done it this way. She was really seeing as like this fresh way of starting over, and she's actually right. Moving to a place where you're starting a church from scratch, you're starting friendships all over, you're getting rid of so much of your furniture to downsize. So much of our life drastically changed in making this move to San Francisco. And part of the reason why we chose San Francisco versus the suburbs of a city is we knew every day, and it's still the case 15 years in, every day we wake up to a place that's desperate for Jesus, whether they know it or not.
Mhm.
We see brokenness all around us. And I mean, you wake up to ministry, you wake up to needs, you wake up to thinking like, ah, will today be a little easier than yesterday? We're just in it. We're in the thick of it. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, there are so many incredible blessings of living in an urban setting and the things that we get to do and are exposed to. It's just rich. It's absolutely rich. But we wake up every day to a very different reality than if we were living somewhere extremely comfortable. And so I write about that a lot in Love Where You Live. It's like comfort is intended to be a gift, not a God. And so I think that's what we just kind of call into question as followers of Jesus. Is like comfort is good, like it's to be enjoyed, but it's not to be the end all. And so I think at times when we've made it the thing, I think that's when it's just like, okay, let's do a little bit of a heart check. What do I need to make space on my calendar for? Who do I need to make space for? What do I need to give up um, in order to get back to a place where it's received as a gift and not the ultimate?
That's good.
Well, and like with your children, I mean, choosing discomfort for yourself is one thing, but then bringing your kids into it is another thing. How do you feel like your kids adjusted and are still adjusting to that idea of every day is different and mostly hard?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think years into this, it's a lot easier to answer now that we're seeing them. Um, we're launching them and they're living on their own and making their own decisions. So it's, again, it's a different place to be answering this question than a year into this. And I'm like, what have we just done to our kids? but but I think every mom, this is always going on in the back of our minds. We're like, how is my decision affecting our family? What lifestyle choices are we making that's affecting our family? Did I make the right school choice? Am I feeding them the right thing? Should I take them to the doctor? Should I wait on that? I mean, we're always thinking this. And so, in some ways, it's the same. I do think years into this, and actually can remember, so we were maybe 5 or 6 years into our life here in San Francisco. And I remember and we still tuck out our kids in today. We've got two that are going into their senior year, and we still tuck them in. Sometimes we're
Amazing.
tucking them in with a kiss on the forehead, and we're going to bed, and they're staying up studying. But
Yep.
nevertheless, we still hold to that practice. And I remember our oldest was, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10. And I remember when we were tucking him in, we made a comment to him that God has our family in the city for sure. Like, no question. We know God has us here, which means our kids are a part of that. But we almost released him like, there's going to come a day where you get to choose to stay here or go somewhere else. And we release you into that. Like, for now, God has you here to learn things, to contribute to the city, consume here, to be a blessing here. But there will come a day that you'll be released from this call. And I think it felt good for us to know, like, we are not the ones that control what happens next or where God sends them. But at the same time, like, we get to do this together for the time being. It's a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful thing. But I think it also leads us to ask ourselves, like, Ben and I are not in San Francisco because of our personal vocations and our gifts. He's got our family here. And there are things that our kids see. There are relationships that they have that we can't step into. There's influence God has given them that we want to bless and we want to be a part of. I'm learning from how God's made our kids
Mm.
and how God's using them. I remember when we were partnering up with a ministry in the city one summer. And so all of our family went down and we could sign up for different things. But we even noticed, like, one of our kids was like, can I just be back in the kitchen packing lunches? I don't want to be out here. I'm not comfortable having conversations with people who are unhoused. I don't know what to do.
Mm.
But he was so comfortable back in the kitchen making lunches. And so it's just kind of figuring that out. It's not like we all have to do the same thing or the same way, but it is figuring that out. And it's watching God develop those things in you, but also watching God develop those things in your kids.
Mhm. That's great. Well, and I'm honestly just sitting here convicted thinking about like listening to you talk because yeah, you were called to San Francisco and that calling was clear, but I mean, God has me in the town that he has me in and the neighborhood that he has me in. And the same missional focus you have,
Mm-hmm.
just because you're a church planter, does not mean that I shouldn't have that same missional focus. But
Yeah.
I think I just, I probably do make a God out of comfort and what my family needs and what's best for us instead of turning outward, as much as I should. And so I think just thinking a little bit more about, being on mission here where we are, I'm so inspired listening to you and thinking, 15 years in, you still have that heart, that missional mindset for the city that you live in to reach people. Um, I think one of the things I'm curious about, Shauna, you wrote Translating Jesus. And I think something that we as Christians struggle with is talking to people that are not believers about the Jesus that we love. Where are we messing that up? Like let's say you are doing a good job as a neighbor, and so you're getting to mix it up. As you guys are bringing the trash cans in with your neighbor across the street, and you want to tell them about Jesus, you want to invite them to church. Where are we getting that wrong?
I don't think I don't think we're bringing him with us everywhere we go. I think we see him at church. We see him in our quiet times. We see him. I think we see him and expect him in certain places, but I don't think we're seeing him and expecting him in every place. And so I think where in our lives do we need to see Jesus? Not for the lost person to see Jesus, but where do we as Christ followers need to see Jesus? And so it could be some tangible things of like, you know what? I actually need to make a space at my table, keep it empty, and start picturing Jesus around the table with our family.
Wow.
And just make a table setting. Like, this is Jesus's seat. We've got to start seeing him here around our family table first and foremost. Or is it, I need something in my car. So everywhere I go, I'm recognizing he's in the car with me on these drives, or he's got the front seat while my 3 kids are buckled up in the back seat. And I want him to be a part of the conversations I'm having with my kids on this drive. So I think first and foremost, where we've gotten it wrong is we're just not taking him with us when we go places, or we're not recognizing that he's with us when we go places. And so again, it's like, do you need to start recognizing that he's with you? If you've got a lot of doctor appointments and he's in that doctor's office, or you need to start seeing him in the classroom that you teach in. So just begin thinking like, where do you need to see him more, that maybe you're not recognizing him there. And I think when we begin to see him in those spaces, he helps us see the people in those spaces. And I think that's what unlocks a lot.
That's great. Listen, I know this is crazy, but immediately when you said take him in the car with you, I just imagined those big blow up dolls.
Me too. That's what I thought about.
Same. I wanted you to say
where
it.
do I get a blow up Jesus to put in the car with me to remember that he is in the car with me? I think that's incredible. I mean, honestly, you should start that. You should market those and it would be great. I think San Francisco Jesus is coming to all of us.
Well, or one of those little, the little bobblehead.
Yeah.
Yep, something like that. Yes.
Bobblehead Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah. No, but that's really good to think about, because I think we do tend to get pretty myopic where we're thinking about our own things. And so we're thinking, how fast can I get through this line? How quickly can I get my groceries and get to the car? And so it's all just about, self, and really efficiency is a huge driver and comfort. It goes back to comfort. Mm-hmm. Efficient people are more comfortable because I'm not having to waste my time on random things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we know, from Gather Moms groups, what we've seen is when a mom will invite another mom, she knows there's a new neighbor in the neighborhood, and she goes over to her house and she says, hey, I would love for you to come meet moms and come to our Gather Moms groups. What we have seen is that small act of the request of invitation means life change for a mom. And so I guess, Shauna, how do we, I think picturing Jesus with us is huge. Mm-hmm. But how do we make that shift of like just being about trying to survive, keep the laundry going, keep the meals, and really living for something like bigger than that? Like, how do we shift our minds that way?
No, that's hard. I mean, I've felt convicted of that even the past few weeks. In fact, one thing I have been journaling is this thought of, what does it look like to go after things that God has for me than going after the things that I have for myself? Mm-hmm. And we know throughout Scripture, Jesus went a certain pace. We know from Scripture, he got alone often. So we know that that's what he did. And we know that he wants us to do the same. And so a lot of it is just dying to pride, dying to think that like, I've got to live up to someone else's expectations of me. But you just gave the examples there, Kate. Like, the 3 of us know, and everyone listening knows, like, when we go at the pace of grace and we do what God has called us to do, that's where the stories come from. That's where the life change comes from. I am a Enneagram 1 type A perfectionist. I love getting stuff done. But for the sake of what? For the sake of what? And I look back on the years when the kids were little and I'm thinking, I got nothing done but maybe some laundry folded. And that felt so wasteful to me. It felt so wasteful. I'm like, I'm more capable. I've got bigger plans, bigger vision. I could do more. But looking back, and I really think this is a word for someone, that those early years, and you both of you are raising, your kids are getting older too, like you just realize like it's not long of investing in your kids. And by God's grace, as our kids are launching, I'm God, like, God, thank you so much for those years where I'm like, I don't think there was not much thank yous. There was a lot of spit up and spaghetti, but I'm so grateful for those years of almost kind of being like behind the scenes.
Mm.
But God was at work in me, and God was developing things in me. And I don't know, it's a beautiful thing. As I feel like being a mom is such a gift and such a unique calling. And there are things that God does in us, and obviously God is doing in our kids in those younger years. Um, and then now, like, now our kids aren't at home, and I've got a lot more free time. And I'm finding myself being able to write books and do other things. But so much of my writing, honestly, came from those still moments. I mean, book ideas were coming while I'm rocking my boys to sleep.
Mm.
You know, and you don't get that time back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just cherishing those younger years when your kids are little, realizing that God is doing a work in you and a work in them, and it's not in vain. It's actually building to something beautiful.
Yeah. No, that's great. So speaking of kids, could you give us some practical ways that you and your family, like how did you involve your kids in having a missional mindset in your neighborhood and in your city? Were there some strategic things that you guys did?
Yes. And I know you've said this earlier, but um, like just the things that we're doing here, I am introverted. Like people drain my tank. So after so many conversations, I'm like, I'm done for the day. But the way God has made me, I love conversations with strangers. Like I am not afraid to talk to a stranger. And a lot, honestly, I will attribute that to my mom. Growing up in the deep South, my mom would take us to the nursing homes to practice our piano. So, I mean, it goes way back.
Wow.
So, that being said, like with our kids, and I write about this in Love Where You Live, just the idea of holding hands with your kids, like you're doing this together. And I think that's no matter what occupation you or your spouse have, like do life with your kids, like hold hands with them. So we've had this mentality as we go into each school year, like we're going in this with you. Like this is a family endeavor. You're going to be the one on campus all day, but we're here with you. We are praying. We will help support your teachers in whatever way they need. So it's just always been a family endeavor. Like we're in this with you. So again, whether that's school, sports, whatever, every start to the school year to this day, we will do it in a few weeks. We prayer walk around every school that our kids are on. We'll prayer walk streets together is a big thing. But it's also just, I think by holding hands with your kids, you see things that they see things that you see, and it's just that shared reality you have with each other. But even little things like tapping into their gifts. So, I mean, our kids, we've sold countless cups of lemonade on the streets. We've built arcades. I think of like a Chuck E. Cheese, but made out of cardboard. We've done arcades on our
Yes.
street because one kid is very entrepreneurial. So it's just like tapping into their gifts. I think sometimes we miss so much when we're expecting them to come along with us, and sometimes we just need to come along with them. But it's also just this awareness of, and I get it, we get to walk our city as opposed to driving everywhere. So you see things different when you're walking of a neighborhood than driving through a neighborhood. But I mean, I can think of times where we've gone through and we've fed people's meters, where no one else knows, but we just took a roll of quarters and we fed meters. We've lived in several different places here in our city, and even though we were the new ones, we would take cookies with like our email and our phone number, and so even though we're the new ones on the block, we're meeting our neighbors that way.
That's awesome.
One year, one house had a lemon tree, so instead of cookies, we gave away lemons. So just looking for ways to do it, to do that kind of stuff together. So much of it just comes down to the resources that God's like, I've got you right here,
Yeah.
and this is what you have. And
Yeah.
I think that's just a big piece of it.
No, that's great. Rebecca, I'd love for you to share because you have a good relationship with your neighbor. And I think, like for me, my street, I feel there was a sense, I think, when we moved here of like, this is where we're called to. And I feel a big sense to it because we have 30 kids that we live on a court. So it's a cul-de-sac. So there's 30 kids here. So I knew, these are families and these are kids that my kids are going to be playing with. And I want to have good relationships with them. So we help host a block party once a year and just have everybody down here. But it's simple, we're grilling hot dogs and putting out cookies and there's flies and it's hot, but here we are. And at Christmas, the kids help and we bake goodies. And I will tell you, like, their favorite thing is to get to take those boxes and deliver them to the doors
So
and
good.
see the people open the door. They come home with the biggest smiles on their
Hmm.
face because they got to neighbor well. They got to give them a gift. They got to love them. Um, and something I've been doing recently is what you just talked about, where I think I pray a lot better walking.
Mm,
I'm not a great sitter in prayer.
mhm.
I just don't, I cannot lock in very well, but I can walk and pray. And so, sometimes, thankfully, my Jenny and Rebecca, who both do Gather Moms with me, we live in the same neighborhood. And so God challenged me a couple of years ago. Whenever I walk by their houses, I just stop and extend a
Mm,
hand and pray for them.
so
But then
good.
there will be times when I'm walking on our street and I'll hear the Spirit say, stop in front of this house and pray for this
Mhm.
family. And
Mhm.
so that's become more of a part of my routine is just praying blessings over the families on my street. Um, but it can be, there's just seasons where I'm better at it than others.
Sure.
Well, it's what you said about not being hurried. I'm trying to think of a part of my life that's not hurried.
Yeah.
And just modeling after Jesus, he always had time. And I 90% of the time am like, no, 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 I got to get to the next thing.
Yeah.
Well, there's no way to stop and love somebody well
Yeah.
when you're rushing.
Yeah.
So just honestly, my spirit's just convicted that I need to make sure that I'm not trying to do more than what God has asked me to do.
Yeah.
Because if I am, I'm doing it because of my own pride
Yeah.
and will rather than what he's like, no, no, I didn't ask you to do that.
Yes.
You just came up with that all on your own.
Yes. No, Rebecca, walked with a friend just the other day to a nearby park, and we sat down and we were having that same conversation of we're all so used to going so fast that honestly, we would actually admire someone in our life who would slow down so we could follow and so then we could slow down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's something there, and there's something there that I want to keep exploring. Like, what would it
Oop,
look
that's
like?
a
Yeah,
book. Come
for
on,
me,
Shauna.
yeah, for me to
Slow down. That's your next book.
slow down, and by doing that, inviting other people to slow down too. And
Yeah.
talking about prayer walking, one thing that I'm growing in with that is just like you did that hand of blessing toward whoever maybe the Spirit was leading you to pray for. I'm doing this with a group of people here in the city. Is praying with people while we're out, which is I get it. It's next level because it is you're putting yourself out there, but the ministry that can come from that of just saying, and I write about this in Translating Jesus of giving some examples where it is all experimental, all experimental. But like even being at the grocery store, no one else being in line, but seeing that the cashier's arm is bandaged up and just saying, "Hey, I'm a person who prays. Can I pray over your arm?" And when she's like, "Absolutely." So then my next step is like, "Can I pray for it right now? No one else is in line." And so to extend the hand and pray for healing over this,
Yeah.
it's like in that moment, it is no longer me and Karen. It is now me, Karen, and Jesus.
Right.
And that's what
Amazing.
prayer does. And I know we just talked, both of us, we all just shared stories about this, but like I can hand cookies out to my neighbors, and that is a very kind gesture. And Jesus can use that. But it is a different kind of ministry when I go next door to Carlos and I say, "Carlos, I know your wife is in the hospital. Can I pray with you for her?" It's different.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
different. So that's
No,
where I'm wanting to grow is being able to invite
that's good.
Jesus into those conversations through prayer because most people are open to prayer. They might not be open to your faith or to religion or to Christianity, but most people are open to prayer.
No, that's beautiful, Shauna. I think I feel encouraged and like reinvigorated toward the mission, which is super helpful. I love that you are living these things out for our moms who, they may be new to their city, and Love Where You Live could be helpful, or they're trying to share Jesus with their neighbors and they want to get Translating Jesus. How can they connect to your resources?
The best place is that blog that was started years ago. So it's shaunapilgreen.com. And I'm trying to slow things down by not being as present on social media. So the blog is the best place, and all of the resources are there.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well,
Yeah,
thank you for modeling that for us, and we'll put those links in the show notes. Thank you, Shauna, for your heart. You are an incredible person, and we can hear it in the way that you talk about your city and how you live. And so thank you so much for the encouragement to us and our mamas.
I was
absolutely.
going to
Well,
say, you kept saying, I'm type A and I like to have a to-do list. I got none of that from this conversation. To me, you are the most unhurried,
hmm.
generous extrovert that it just came across. So that's if I mean God's doing something in you through that, because I would have never guessed those things based on just the conversation we had. You were so warm and welcoming.
Well, thank you, Rebecca. That is all Jesus. This is the only conversation I have for the day. So there you go.
Yes.
Yes, we got it. Good. All right. Thank you, Shauna. And thanks, moms, for being with us today. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.